Hey, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, glassed up. Hope you're doing well. And it is time for our weekly track Roundup, where I go over what I felt were the best and worst tracks of the week. Toss them all down there into the description box for you, where you can check them out on your own. And yeah, let's get into it with no hesitation. So. We also down there have our Amazon and Turntable Lab associate links. Treat yourself to some colorful vinyl using that Turntable Lab associate link. We get kickback from it. Supports the segment, supports the channel. A few other shout-outs. There is an amazing Kendrick Lamar Aha remix of the Backseat Freestyle and Take On Me. And it's pretty fantastic. It's very entertaining, very, very funny. And there is a King Arthur remix of Janelle Monáe's Pink featuring Grimes. It's pretty dancey, pretty funky, and highly enjoyable. All right, worst tracks this week. Let's get into it. The worst tracks this week, tracks that were some of my least favorites this week. Starting off with the new song from ZAYN, Fingers. Kind of another somewhat interesting play on love in the digital age. However, despite the fact that I think this is one of ZAYN's more solid tunes and lyrical topics in his discography so far, his voice is still absolutely soulless, boring, and unnecessary. His singing, unfortunately, since he has gone solo, has just turned really bland, and he just kind of sounds like a really washed out, atmospheric, alternative R&B singer still, without much personality or flavor to what he is doing. Moving on from there, there is a new Vic Mensa song titled Empathy, and this track essentially seems like a bit of an explanation and a mea culpa after the whole XXXTentacion BET freestyle diss thing, where he's kind of found himself in a bit of drama and some hot water, and a bunch of people calling him out as being a hypocrite. And this track sort of seems like him trying to explain away his mindset and trying to point the finger a little bit at other stuff too. It's just a totally just unreasoned mess, and that's really all I can say. Like, it's really boring as a song. His flow is pretty decent. He delivers the song pretty passionately, but still, the logic behind the track and the reasoning behind the track is really shaky and obnoxious. Moving on from there, this new collaborative cut for the new animated Spider-Man movie. The track features Swae and Post Malone, and it sounds like both of them are kind of coming out with like a really dolled up piece of synth pop, and it's kind of horrid. So I'm just going to move on from there because, you know, a lot of these commissioned pop pieces for major movie soundtracks are typically pretty awful. And I guess this just kind of continues down that road. Moving on from there, Joji Test Drive. I did a little track review of this song over on the second channel, the Fantano channel. Long story short, I think vocally and instrumentally, it is one of the weaker singles from his newest album so far. And all in all, it just pretty much sounds like a Post Malone ripoff, like a really weak Post Malone ripoff, which is kind of unfortunate because I felt like with some of his other recent tracks, he was kind of heading in a more original and memorable direction. Hopefully this song is a bit of an anomaly in that sense on the Ballads 1 release, but I guess we'll see. And Jimmy Urine has a new record that has just dropped. Jimmy Urine, if you're unfamiliar with the guy, was or I suppose is, I'm not exactly on what the status of the band is, though it's been a very long time since we've heard some new music from them, but still, we're talking about Mindless Self-Indulgence, one of the weirdest and most tasteless bands of all time, and now its frontman has returned with a solo record that is in equally bad taste, and he has a new single out with Grimes, and vocally, instrumentally, it's a mess, it's horrid, but you know, that's just kind of Jimmy's style, to make music that is, again, in such bad taste. And while I'm talking about this album, it also features two of the worst covers that I've heard in my entire life, of What a Fool Believes and Wuthering Heights. Two very unlikely cover concepts for an album like this, and an artist of Jimmy's caliber too. But I give it to the guy. He must have good taste for him to want to pick particularly on those two songs, but I digress. And finally, Cult Leader have a new single out. They have been teasing toward their latest record on Death Wish, and Cult Leader has displayed themselves to not be your average metalcore act. They're a bit more technical, a bit more versatile, a bit more adventurous, and this new song over here certainly shows that, although I'm not exactly sure if the territory they've wandered into is all that fantastic. This new cut over here, to Achlys, Greek goddess, being referenced there in the title, is a cleanly sung, very dreary, downtrodden ballad that is super drawn out, super awkward. I don't really think the vocals go over all that well. I can appreciate the kind of dark and gothy vibe the band is going for, but it just seems really off the mark, in my opinion. All right, going into the tracks that I thought were meh. Not amazing, not mind-blowing, but not terrible either. Certainly worth your attention. Thom Yorke is continuing to drop new tracks from his upcoming Suspiria soundtrack, and he is really just going to spoil the whole record before it's out. This new one is a pretty dreary ballad that eventually fizzles out. I do like the vibe. I do like some of the vocals, although there's not really that strong of a structure to it. Moving on from there, Neneh Cherry, new record out featuring production wall to wall from none other than Fortet. New song over here is Natural Skin Deep. She just dropped it as like an Adult Swim single too. And yeah, it's an okay track. This song to me, there are a lot of great things about it, but I'm sort of mixed on it overall, which is really what my feelings on the new album in general are. While I do like some of her vocal melodies and some of the lyrics on the record, and Fortet's production more often than not does steal the show. But outside of that, I feel like so many of her vocalizations across this album just seem really awkward. It's kind of hard to describe. I mean, it's really expressive, but there's something about the melodies that she's trying to sing, the execution of them, it's a little off. You know, it just seems a little shaky, I guess. And it's sort of off-putting for me, personally. Definitely not as sharp when it comes to vocal performances as some of the more legendary recordings that she has done in the past with a myriad of different artists on a myriad of different records. Moving on from there, Lil Peep has a new posthumous song out. Come Over When You're Sober Part 2 is set to release later this year. The new album has a teaser track here. Like I said, posthumous cut. Cry Alone is the name of the song. Did a track review for it on the Fantano channel. Make sure to check that out if you want my thoughts a little bit more in depth on this track. But in a lot of ways, this song is very much in Peep's typical vein. But if anything really makes it fall short, it's that the chorus and the verses on this thing just feel a little too similar, leaving me to believe like maybe this could have been built out a little bit more or something. I do like some of the dark, isolated, depressed lyrics on the track. Obviously, you have some nods to drug abuse and addiction in the song. You have some nods to his doubters and his detractors and the rich kids from school saying, oh, yeah, if they could look at me now, which is a kind of dark and chilling and bittersweet considering his passing. And the instrumental and the vocal melody on the track gives off a strong Nirvana, like a strong grungy kind of vibe, which I thought was a little more refreshing than some of the emo directions that he had gone in on some of his past material. I wish there was just more to it, you know, honestly. I just wish there was more to it. As is, there are some cool things here, but I don't know, it just feels a little scant. Moving on from there, Kitten Kitten. The pop band Kitten have a new track out. It is titled Oh My God. Not one of my favorite tracks from the band so far. Honestly, they have been dropping some fire singles as of late. This new cut over here, it's got a big, bright, huge, gigantic 80s pop, new wavy type of sheen on it. It's pretty fun aesthetically, but I think the tune really is one of the weakest that they have done so far. Just wish the melodies were a bit sharper, and that the hook seemed a bit more thought-provoking or something. It seems like a lot of the cut is kind of swallowed by the chorus too. Like there's too much of a focus on that one moment, and there's really not much going on outside of that. And again, as I said, the hook isn't even that mind-blowing. So I do like the aesthetic. As usual, the band does bring high energy, but I think on the writing side of things, it's not one of their best cuts. Moving on from there, Mascis has a new solo record on the way, Web So Dense. Even though Jay does have a very samey vocal delivery and songwriting style, every once in a while he does manage to jam out a pretty great and heart-wrenching ballad, and this is certainly one of those instances. Again, stylistically pretty predictable, but the song is there. And if you're unfamiliar with Dinosaur Jr., Mascis, please do give this track a shot, because Jay's a pretty solid and consistent singer-songwriter. Moving on from there, Empress of, new album out now. One of the more promising up-and-coming independent pop singers making waves at the moment. One song that is kind of grabbing attention right now as being recent released is I Don't Even Smoke Weed. The vocals on the cut were a little nondescript, but I still thought overall that the instrumental was pretty fantastic. A really solid and hard-hitting synth pop instrumental. And shout out to Action Bronson, who has a new track out, Prince Charming. Maybe a new project on the way soon or something. I thought some of the bars on this track were pretty sharp, even if as a tune, as a song, it felt pretty underwritten. All right, let's get into the tracks I thought were the best this week. Ones that really grabbed my attention, blew me away, surprised me. Tracks that I enjoyed, tracks that entertained me, tracks that I felt positive toward. First, the 1975, Miraculously, enjoying their latest single over here. I think this is the first single from their latest LP here that I really loved. It's Not Worth Living If It's Not With You. A lovely little new wavy 80s pop tune with a gargantuan chorus, some really feel-good and passionate vocals on the verses. It's a really exuberant song with a powerful performance and some good quality production too. Given the previous singles so far, I know it's probably not going to be an album that I love. It's most likely going to be all over the place in terms of enjoyment, but hey, I can at least come down to this song over here and say this is catchy as hell and gorgeous. Moving on from there, Please Forgive is the latest song from Powers Pleasant, an artist I wasn't really familiar with up until this point, but this new collaborative version of this song features Denzel Curry, Zombie Juice, Zillakami, and IDK, kind of a badass posse cut here. So give it a shot. It's a trap banger with a lot of energy and a lot of decent, talented lyricists back to back to back to back. So it's not often you see guys of this caliber in the underground all converging onto one single track, so don't miss out on it. It's pretty great. Moving on from there, this song over here gave me nightmares. This Nicole Dollanganger song. It's been a while since I've thought of her music. She had a Bandcamp album a while ago that was pretty dreamy and eerie. But this new single and music video of hers titled Lemonade is a really odd track. It's very washed out, it's very atmospheric, but simultaneously it's pretty gorgeous, and the lyrics are very sexual and dark. So despite the very atmospheric and kind of feminine demeanor of the song, there's something incredibly sinister about it too that's worth taking into account. Moving on from there, Lil Simz, UK rapper Lil Simz, has a new song out titled Boss. It is a very lo-fi and grimy lyrical banger. Love the instrumental, love her screamed and strained and passionate vocal performance on the hook, and her bars are sharp as well. So do give this track a shot. It's really fun. And, Julia Holter. new album on the way. Looking forward to this gigantic and probably gorgeous new release. I feel like Julia, her songwriting on this track, and maybe it's just my first impression here once I hear it more, this may not in fact be the case, but I feel like her songs are almost getting a little too swallowed up in a way by all the gorgeous instrumentation she surrounds herself with. But that being said, this was a wonderfully, dizzyingly beautiful track. And I'm looking forward to seeing how ambitious she's going to get on this new full-length album, because that's definitely the tone of the instrumental on this track for me. It really sounds like she's getting a little bit more intimate on the vocal side, not being washed out in as much reverb, and getting kind of dense with some of the instrumentation, and nimble with some of the instrumental passages and compositions on this thing too. So looking forward to this album. Just to kind of tell you guys, the name of the track is Words I Heard. Moving on from there, Cheer, Drug Church. This band has been getting hyped up by Stereo Gum, and they have a record coming out via Pure Noise. And this new song over here is just a really nasty, fun, I'll say exuberant and catchy bit of pop punk and shoegaze and noise rock. It's a really exciting tune sonically, but there's a really solid, I guess, just song behind all the noise and all the layers of sound as well that are pretty cool. Moving on from there, Babymetal, Starlight. There has been a lot of press on Babymetal for the past week or so, and a new single here, obviously. The track is easily one of the heaviest the band has dropped so far. It's a little overproduced, it's a little overdone, but still incredibly fun, and certainly put a smile on my face. And there's a really weird, jammy, super heavy, genty, like little bit of instrumental bit toward the back end of the track, but outside of that, it is just pomp. It's just soaring female vocal harmonies. It's just so freaking over the top. You know, while it's not maybe my favorite take on metal music, I do understand why people hear Babymetal and they say, man, the Japanese, they just do metal so much better. They just do it so much better. I understand why some people say that, just because of killer and exciting and electrifying tracks like these. All right, and finally, I want to give a shout out to the band. They have a record coming out via Polyvinyl, Antarctigo Vespucci. Third record this is going to be. They are a pop punk outfit, and this new song over here, Freakin' You Out, is easily one of the most fun rock songs that I've heard this month. Don't know if I could say much more about it than that, other than the playing. The execution is really tight. Production is sweet but grimy. The vocals have a really captivating personality to them that is really amped, really energetic. And the tune and lyrics are really fun as well. It's got a lot of personality. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little silly, but still pretty fantastic. All right. I think that has been it for our weekly track roundup this week. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys got some good recommendations out of this episode. I will catch you guys in the next one. Anthony Fantano, weekly track roundup.